The lights of Madison Square Garden pulsed like a living heartbeat as Valentina Voss hit the final soaring note of her biggest hit, the crowd of 20,000 screaming her name into the humid New York night. She lowered the microphone, her chest heaving under the sequin jumpsuit that sparkled like captured stars, and turned to the side of the stage where Eleanor Hayes stood, beautiful and composed in a simple black dress that hugged her figure with quiet elegance. Without hesitation, Valentina dropped to one knee right there in front of the roaring audience, pulling out a small velvet box from her pocket, the diamond inside catching every spotlight. "Eleanor, my love, my anchor through every storm, will you marry me?" The words boomed through the speakers and time seemed to freeze for a heartbeat before Eleanor, tears already streaming down her face, nodded vigorously and whispered yes into the mic that Valentina held up. The arena erupted in a deafening wave of cheers and gasps, phones flashing like fireworks, the moment instantly exploding across every social platform in the country. Valentina rose, pulling Eleanor into a tight embrace, their foreheads touching as the crowd chanted their names, mixed with whoops and some scattered boos that got lost in the roar. She slipped the ring onto Eleanor's finger, the metal cool against warm skin, and kissed her cheek softly, the gesture tender and public all at once. Backstage, the dressing room was chaos, flowers, champagne bottles popping, security guards pushing back reporters who had somehow slipped through. Valentina laughed breathlessly, spinning Eleanor around. "We did it, baby, the whole world knows now, and I don't care what they say." Eleanor smiled, but her grip on Valentina's hand was tighter than usual, her architect mind already sketching the structural cracks this moment might cause in their carefully built private life. They had kept their relationship hidden for 2 years, meeting first in a quiet Brooklyn bookstore where Valentina, incognito in a hoodie and glasses, had reached for the same worn copy of a poetry collection, their fingers brushing and sparking a conversation that lasted hours over coffee. Now the secret was gone, replaced by viral videos trending worldwide under hashtags like Valproposal and Lesbian Pop Queen. Valentina's phone would not stop buzzing, her manager Marcus texting frantically, "This is career suicide or genius, we need damage control now." But in the tinted SUV speeding toward their Manhattan apartment, Valentina leaned her head on Eleanor's shoulder, the city lights streaking past like shooting stars. For the first time in years she felt free, no more coded lyrics, no more dodging questions about who that mysterious woman in her songs might be. Eleanor traced the new ring on her finger, whispering "I love you," but her voice carried the first hint of uncertainty, the kind that comes when love steps into the spotlight and the shadows suddenly feel heavier. They fell asleep tangled together that night, unaware that by morning the frenzy would turn from celebration to something far more dangerous. The next day, headlines screamed across every site: Valentina Voss comes out in epic Onstage proposal to mystery woman. Fans flooded social media with support, rainbow flags and heart emojis, but the comments sections twisted quickly, some calling it a PR stunt, others worse, labeling Valentina a disappointment to her wholesome image. Eleanor scrolled through her own phone at breakfast, her usual calm face paling as she read posts from strangers dissecting her appearance, her job, her worthiness. Valentina kissed the top of her head. "We face it together, love," but inside she felt the familiar knot of ambition clashing with truth, the career she had clawed to the top of now teetering on the edge because of one honest moment. By afternoon, Marcus was at their door, laptop open, showing sponsor emails, already questioning future collaborations, and her conservative Italian-American parents back in New Jersey had left a dozen voicemails, each more furious than the last. The proposal that felt like triumph in the lights now carried the first sharp edge of consequence, and neither woman could look away. Morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Soho apartment as Valentina brewed coffee, the aroma doing little to mask the tension humming between them. Eleanor sat at the kitchen island, still in her robe, scrolling through the endless notifications, her usually steady architect hands trembling slightly. Every major outlet had the video looped with slow-motion replays of the knee drop, the ring, the kiss on the cheek, and pundits debated whether this was brave or reckless for a pop star whose last album had topped charts by appealing to everyone from teens to soccer moms. Valentina set a mug in front of her. "We knew this could happen," but seeing the fear flicker across Eleanor's face made her stomach twist. Last night had been pure joy, today felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane, watching the walls close in. Marcus arrived before noon, his suit rumpled from the red-eye flight from LA. "Ladies, we have a situation," he said, spreading printouts across the table. "Sponsors are nervous, 3 already pulling talks for the upcoming tour. Social media is split, half love it, half calling for boycotts from conservative groups." Valentina crossed her arms, her dark wavy hair still messy from sleep. "This is my life, Marcus, not a marketing campaign. I love Eleanor and am not hiding anymore." He sighed, rubbing his temples. Val, your family is blowing up my phone to your father says if you don't issue a statement clarifying it was a joke or something he's done. Eleanor looked up, her voice quiet but firm. It's not a joke. Marcus nodded, but his eyes held, warning the industry isn't as progressive as the headlines claim. One wrong move, and the label could freeze your next album. By afternoon the first family call came through. Valentina's mother voice cracking over speakerphone. How could you do this to us in front of the whole world? We raised you in the church. What will the relatives say? Valentina paced the living room, gripping the phone. Mom, I can't change who I am anymore. Eleanor is my future. The line went dead after her father's roar of disappointment, leaving silence thick as smoke. Eleanor wrapped her arms around her from behind, her touch grounding, but Valentina could feel the tremor in those hands too. Eleanor's own phone lit up, then her parents from their quiet Pennsylvania suburb, more measured, but still laced with concern. Honey, this spotlight, it changes people. Are you sure you're ready for what comes next? Eleanor assured them she was, but later alone in the bathroom she stared at her reflection, the new ring glinting like a question mark. She had built a life of blueprints and quiet stability, now thrust into a world of flashbulbs and judgment, where every choice carried public weight. The day blurred into strategy sessions, Marcus pushing for controlled interviews, Valentina refusing to soften the truth. Eleanor tried to work on her latest project, designs for a Brooklyn community center, but focus slipped away, replaced by visions of her conservative colleagues, whispering at the office. By evening they escaped to a small rooftop garden, their secret spot before the proposal, but even their drones hovered in the distance, paparazzi hungry for the first post-proposal shot. Valentina pulled Eleanor close under the string lights, whispering, I would do it again 1,000 times. Eleanor kissed her forehead, but the words that followed carried the first crack. I know, but what if the cost is more than we can pay? The frenzy was only beginning, and the women who had found each other in hidden corners now stood exposed on the world stage, wondering if their love could weather the storm they had invited. The backlash hit like a tidal wave. By the third day, conservative talk shows dissected the proposal frame by frame, calling it an attack on traditional values, while online petitions demanded radio stations drop Valentina's music. Eleanor sat in their living room, laptop open, reviewing the damage. Her architectural firm had already received 2 client cancellations citing image concerns. She closed the screen, rubbing her temples, the weight of visibility pressing down harder than any deadline she had ever faced. Valentina returned from a tense label meeting, her face drawn, but eyes fierce. They want me to say it was spontaneous or a performance piece, but I'm not lying anymore. Eleanor stood, crossing the room to hold her, the embrace a brief fortress against the noise outside. But inside her mind raced with questions about sacrifice and the morality of forcing the world to see what it refused to accept. Flashbacks came unbidden as they cooked dinner together, simple pasta in their sunlit kitchen. 2 years earlier in that Brooklyn bookstore, Valentina had been just a woman escaping the grind of studio sessions, her laugh easy and unguarded as they discussed forgotten poets. Their first date had been a hidden picnic in Central Park. After dark, no cameras, no expectations, just 2 souls connecting in a city that never slept. Now those stolen moments felt like relics from another life, replaced by the constant buzz of alerts, and the knowledge that every argument, every tender touch could be twisted by strangers. Eleanor stirred the sauce, her voice soft. Do you ever regret keeping us secret for so long? Valentina set down the knife, turning to face her every day. But I was scared of exactly this, the judgment, the loss. They talked deep into the night, unpacking layers of internalized pressure. Valentina revealing how her Italian-American upbringing in New Jersey had taught her love between women was something to whisper about, never celebrate publicly. Eleanor shared her own quieter fears from a liberal, but still cautious family. The worry that public scrutiny would strip away the privacy she had always guarded like a blueprint no one else should alter. The next morning brought the first real betrayal, a blurry photo leaked to tabloids showing Eleanor and Valentina sharing a private moment on their balcony, months earlier, captioned "Secret Lesbian Romance Exposed." The source was traced to a former assistant fired months ago, but the damage was instant. Valentina's label called, demanding an emergency meeting, sponsors cited morality clauses, and Eleanor's boss suggested a leave of absence to let things cool. Eleanor paced the apartment, anger mixing with hurt. How can people we trusted sell us out like this? Valentina pulled her into a hug, but her own thoughts churned with doubt. Had her bold act of love endangered the woman she cherished most? They decided to face the press together, a small controlled statement affirming their engagement and commitment, but the questions lobbed at them in the virtual conference were sharp, probing their plans for children, their faith, their politics. Valentina answered with quiet strength, Eleanor with measured grace, but afterward alone the exhaustion settled like lead. That evening they drove to a secluded spot upstate, the city fading behind them as they sat by a quiet lake, hands intertwined. Eleanor traced patterns on Valentina's palm, whispering, "I love the woman who took that knee, but sometimes I miss the version of us the world didn't own." Valentina nodded, tears in her eyes, the internal conflict raging, love versus legacy, ambition versus authenticity. The proposal had been a declaration, now it demanded they confront every hidden fracture in their lives, and the choices ahead carried prices neither had fully calculated, yet the bond between them held even as the ground beneath shifted. The confrontation with Valentina's family unfolded in their New Jersey hometown, the drive there heavy with unspoken fears. The Voss family home stood unchanged, red brick and manicured lawn, a monument to the life Valentina had left behind. Her mother opened the door, eyes red-rimmed, her father waiting in the living room, arms crossed like a judge. "How dare you embarrass us like this in front of millions?" her father boomed, the words landing like blows. Valentina stood tall, Eleanor beside her, a quiet pillar of support. "We are in love, Dad, this isn't about you." The argument escalated, voices rising with accusations of selfishness, betrayal of faith, and ruin to the family name, her mother sobbing about what the church ladies would say. Eleanor tried to mediate, her voice calm but firm, but the disownment came swift and final. "Until you fix this, don't call us." They left the house in silence, the drive back to Manhattan stretching like an endless tunnel, Valentina gripping the wheel, knuckles white, the cost of truth carving deep lines in her heart. Back in the city, the industry fallout accelerated. Marcus arrived with news the label had frozen promotion for her next single, citing sponsor pullouts and whispers of contract renegotiation. Worse, a trusted friend from her early days in the industry leaked old emails to a gossip site suggesting the proposal was a calculated career move to stay relevant. Valentina read the article in disbelief, the betrayal stinging sharper than any headline, the friend who had once celebrated their secret now selling it for clicks. Eleanor held her through the tears, whispering, "You didn't force me onto that stage. I said yes because I meant it." Yet doubt crept into Eleanor's own reflections late at night, staring at blueprints spread across the dining table. Her career built on precision now threatened by association. She questioned the morality of their public stand. Was love worth dragging others into the crossfire? Or had they been selfish in assuming the world would simply adjust? Valentina made her first major sacrifice, canceling 2 sold-out tour dates to focus on damage control, the decision costing hundreds of thousands and fan goodwill in some quarters. They spent days in strategy sessions, alternating between defiance and compromise, Valentina refusing to apologize for the proposal, but agreeing to a joint interview where they spoke of love without details. The media cycle churned, relentless, conservative outlets framing them as symbols of moral decay, progressive ones as heroes, but both reducing their humanity to soundbites. Eleanor faced her own reckoning at work, a key project reassigned with the polite excuse of optics, her colleagues avoiding eye contact, the isolation, a slow erosion of the professional identity she had fought for. In quiet moments she weighed the price, her privacy, her stability, her family's tentative support, all traded for a ring and a spotlight she never sought. The betrayal from within their circle deepened when another close contact, a former collaborator, sold a story claiming Eleanor had pressured Valentina for the proposal to boost her own profile. The lie spread like fire, forcing another defensive statement. Valentina confronted the leaker over the phone, her voice breaking. "Why would you do this to us?" The response, cold, "Business is business." That night they lay awake, the city humming below, Valentina whispering, "I would give it all up for you, Eleanor," the words heavy with the realization that sacrifice might mean losing the very career that had brought them together. The storm had revealed fractures in friendships, family, and industry, but through it all their commitment held a fragile flame against the gathering dark, testing every boundary of what they believed love required. Tension peaked in their apartment one rainy afternoon when the latest tabloid dropped an exclusive interview with Valentina's estranged cousin, painting her as a rebellious daughter who abandoned family values for fame and forbidden love. Valentina threw the magazine across the room, her usually controlled temper flaring. "This is what my courage bought us, pain for everyone I love." Eleanor picked it up calmly, but her eyes held storm clouds. "You chose that stage, Val, and I stood beside you, but now my firm is hinting at letting me go and my parents barely speak to me." The argument escalated, voices rising with raw honesty, Valentina accusing Eleanor of second guessing their love, Eleanor countering that visibility had stripped her of the quiet life she needed to thrive. Words like regret and maybe we rushed hung in the air before they both fell silent, the weight of accumulated wounds pressing down. They separated for the first time since the proposal, Valentina crashing at a friend's place in Brooklyn, Eleanor staying in the now too quiet Soho apartment. Alone, Valentina walked the rainy streets, replaying every decision, the internal monologue a torrent of doubt. Had her ambition blinded her to the cost for Eleanor, the woman who had grounded her through tours and insecurities? She sat in a coffee shop, the same chain where they had shared their first public but disguised date, remembering the spark that had grown into this inferno. Meanwhile, Eleanor sketched furiously at her drafting table, lines blurring with unshed tears, questioning her own role in the moral tangle, love demanding she sacrifice anonymity for partnership. Was that fair, or had she enabled the very exposure that now threatened to break them? A surprise visit from a loyal friend brought perspective, the woman who had witnessed their secret beginning, urging them not to let outsiders define their story. Valentina returned home that evening, flowers in hand, the gesture simple but loaded. They talked through the night, unpacking layers of fear, Valentina admitting the proposal had been as much defiance as devotion, Eleanor confessing her terror of losing herself in the narrative of the pop star's fiancé. Forgiveness came slowly, wrapped in tears and promises to fight together rather than apart. Yet the industry betrayal escalated when Marcus revealed the label was shopping for a new face to replace her in upcoming campaigns, the agent who had once championed her now advising a strategic breakup for optics. Valentina fired him on the spot, the decision liberating but terrifying, the career she had built brick by brick now crumbling under the very authenticity she had claimed. In the aftermath, they attended a small private gathering of supportive queer artists, the first public appearance since the proposal. There, amid genuine congratulations, Valentina performed an acoustic version of a new song written for Eleanor, the lyrics raw with struggle and hope. The room listened in hushed reverence, but outside the world continued its judgment, calls from family, still unreturned emails from sponsors. Eleanor watched her fiancé on the makeshift stage, heart swelling with pride yet aching with the knowledge that each note carried the price of lost opportunities. They left hand in hand, the rain having stopped, leaving streets glistening like new beginnings, but both knew the real test lay ahead, choices that would define not just their future, but the legacy of their courage. Valentina stepped onto the small, intimate stage of a downtown venue weeks later, the crowd limited to 200 invited guests, a deliberate contrast to Madison Square Garden. The proposal song she had written in the quiet aftermath filled the room, her voice steady yet vulnerable, every lyric a testament to the journey from hidden love to public firestorm. Eleanor sat in the front row, ring glinting under soft lights, her eyes never leaving Valentina's face, the performance a quiet reclamation of their story, amid the ruins of cancelled deals, strained family ties and industry whispers. As the last note faded, applause rose genuine and warm, but backstage Valentina collapsed into Eleanor's arms, whispering, "I don't know if I can keep fighting like this." Eleanor held her tight, the embrace of vow, "We choose each day, not the world." The weeks that followed brought partial reconciliation, Valentina's mother reaching out first, hesitant then tearful, admitting the shock had forced her to confront her own prejudices, though her father remained distant. Eleanor's firm offered her project back with cautious respect, the leave of absence framed as creative sabbatical. Sponsors trickled back, some drawn by the authenticity narrative, others still wary, but the couple navigated each small victory knowing the scars remained. They moved forward, planning a private ceremony for close friends only, the date set for spring in a quiet upstate vineyard away from cameras. Yet they both understood the proposal had irrevocably altered their path, forcing constant vigilance against new betrayals and internal doubts. In the end, Valentina released a statement refusing to apologize for the onstage moment, calling it the bravest truth she had ever told. Eleanor stood beside her at the press event, their hands linked, the image echoing that fateful night, but now with eyes wiser to the cost. Family ties mended unevenly, careers adjusted with new boundaries, and their love deepened through the fire of sacrifice. Yet as they walked home through New York streets that no longer felt entirely safe, Valentina turned to Eleanor, asking the question that lingered between them. When love demands you burn down the world you built, was the proposal the bravest choice or the greatest mistake, one that society will always judge but only we can answer?